Welcome to High, Global New Military Updates. This is the place to update military developments, global strategy, and modern weapons power. Let's analyze and make judgments. Each question from the audience is not only curiosity, but also a door to open the truth behind the guns, the bullets, and the military tactics that changed history. On October 8, 2023, the U.S. Navy announced that the second Ford-class nuclear aircraft carrier is currently in the process of completion and has reached 90% progress. According to the Navy's plan, the ship will officially be put into operation in 2024. However, with the breakthrough of some new technologies, the U.S. team wants to upgrade and improve this ship. Therefore, the plan to put it into operation has been delayed from 2024 to 2025 to 100,000-ton steel monster worth $10 billion. But why? Until today, it is still locked in the shipyard. The United States has begun planning for the construction of the second Ford-class aircraft carrier. After a round of bidding, Hunter Ingold Industries has received congressional approval for a $374 million construction plan and bids for the project next year. The company has begun detailed design for the ship and is preparing the necessary construction. However, although the project is expected to proceed smoothly, congressmen have begun to debate. Arizona state senators are the first to speak up. We want the second Ford-class aircraft carrier to be named Arizona in memory of the battleship Arizona, which was sunk at Pearl Harbor, and to remember the soldiers who died in the war. However, this proposal was not approved by Congress because the first aircraft carrier was already named after the 38th president, Gerry Ford. So the National Association trends naming second aircraft carrier after another U.S. president. However, considering Arizona congressman's suggestion to remember the pains of World War II and wish to bring peace to all, the U.S. Department of Defense finally selected the 35th U.S. president, John F. Kennedy, who served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Under the U.S. Army contract, the ship was originally scheduled to be completed by the end of 2018. But due to continued research and development costs, the plan was extended to 20,210. However, during construction, technical failures continued to occur, causing the Navy to delay the completion time by another 2 years, to the end of 2022. But by 2017, the ship was only about 50% complete. Forced to accelerate the construction on the 30th of May 2019, when the superstructure of the ship, weighing 588 tons, was installed. Accordingly, marking the completion of the ship, a ceremony was held at the Newport News shipyard. However, this largest and most modern nuclear aircraft carrier was not originally designed to be equipped with the F-35C. At that time, the main aircraft on the U.S. Navy's aircraft carriers was the F-A-18 Super Hornet, and not I think F-35C can be mass-produced so quickly. Therefore, at the Navy's repeated request, Kennedy must make some changes on 2/11/2021. The U.S. Navy issued a contract amendment, changing the Kennedy's two-phase delivery method to the traditional one-phase method to bring the ship to operational readiness more quickly. After delivery under this amendment, the Newport News shipyard will perform additional work before delivery, including upgrades to equip the F-35C fighter and dual-band radar EAS-2, as well as to fix some problems that have appeared on the ship. Yuri Gagarin, Kennedy. Therefore, the Kennedy's delivery time has been repeatedly delayed. According to the U.S. military, the delivery date will be pushed back by about 2 years, and the expected delivery date will be at the end of June 2024. According to the U.S. military's observation, the Kennedy land-based aircraft carrier can carry 80 fighters, and in the maximum situation, it can carry up to 90. The ship can accommodate 2 squadrons of F-35C fighters, 2 squadrons of F-A-18 Super Hornet fighters, and a squadron of E-2B hot early warning aircraft. The F-35 series that can take off by catapult and the wing with a brake hook on the top. Of the airport, the shape of the F-35C is slightly larger than the F-35A and F-35B. To have greater lift and improve the ability to take off and land on the runway, the F-35C has a wingspan of 13 meters, an increase of 2.3 meters compared to the previous two versions. The wing area also increased by about 45%. The amount of fuel carried is also larger than the F-35A, about 680 kilograms larger. Tail area and landing gear structure is also enhanced. In terms of weapons carrying range and combat radius, F-35C is equivalent to F-35A and about 1/4 higher than F-35B. Therefore, F-35C is the most expensive fighter model in the three versions. In addition to the carrying capacity, according to F-35C, the performance of the Kennedy aircraft carrier cannot be doubted. As a mobile aircraft carrier at sea, United Kennedy aircraft carrier has a speed of about 30 knots, equivalent to about 56 kilometers per hour. This speed not only helps the aircraft carrier reach the designated position faster, but also allows the ship to travel against the wind, creates enough wind on the deck to support fully loaded aircraft takeoff to achieve a speed of 30 knots. For this 100,000-ton ship, the U.S. military has equipped the ship with 2 nuclear reactors, A1B each. The reactor has a capacity of up to 175,000 shaft horsepower, 25% higher than the A4W Love-Nimitz reactor. The life of this reactor is up to 55, and only needs to change the nuclear fuel once during the life of the ship. The advantage of the nuclear reactor is its small size, takes up little space on the aircraft carrier, and provides very large capacity. The use of nuclear aircraft carriers also reduces the need for logistics. No need to frequently dock to refuel like conventional aircraft carriers, and reduces the restriction because of the supply at the port helps the ship to operate longer at sea. In addition to the GDF Truro 4, the Kennedy also uses an electronic aircraft launch system, EMALS. The principle of the electromagnetic launch system is not too complicated. Strong current creates a strong magnetic field, and the electromagnet acts on the traction mechanism linked to the aircraft, helps the aircraft achieve takeoff speed. However, a 20 to 30-ton fighter aircraft can take off on a runway as short as a few 10 meters. The electromagnetic launch system must have an instantaneous power up to 10,000 kilowatts. The Kennedy's electromagnetic launch system can complete charging in 50 seconds and release a large amount of energy in about 2 to 4 seconds. Can launch most aircraft on the aircraft carrier, including the F-35C and the E-2B early warning aircraft. Compared to the previous Yeezy Dragunov, the electromagnetic launch system on the Kennedy has made significant improvements. Not only is it more efficient, but also has a simpler structure, easier to maintain. So what improvements has the Yeezy Kennedy had compared to its predecessor, Yeezy Dragon, off on January 16, 2007? The first nuclear aircraft carrier of the United States Navy was officially named. According to the 38th President of the United States, the Gerald Ford was the first Ford-class aircraft carrier on 10th September 2008. The U.S. Navy signed a $5.1 billion contract with the shipbuilder by March 2008. Due to problems with the nuclear reactor and weapons elevator, construction costs increased from the original $5.1 billion to $13 billion, making the Choyarj Dragunov the most expensive military ship ever built. 31st May 2008. The Newport News shipyard delivered the VF-8 Ford Orford to the U.S. Navy. The 23rd Air Test and Evaluation Squadron flew the FA-18 Super Hornet to perform the first launch landing from the Ford. The tests went smoothly without any problems, and the Navy deemed the ship ready for deployment. Although, however, the U.S. government's accountability agency, JAI, has a different view. They believe that the weapons elevators on the carrier still have serious problems. problems, just not yet reached the level of being usable in combat. Electronic Aircraft Launch System EMALS also have some performance problems, and the initial result is to conduct 4,000 test launches, but in reality only completed less than half. This is a serious shortfall in test data. They are concerned that equipping new systems that have never been used before may be too risky, and recommend extending the time for MSSAO. Despite controversy, some people believe the use of new weapons elevators and electromagnetic launch systems not yet applied on aircraft carriers will significantly increase the combat power of the carrier, making it a breakthrough product. After fierce debate, pursuing the decision to trust TAFA, considering that these new equipment will bring great improvement. On the 18th of June 2021, the ship Ford conducted its first full ship VA test, about 100 miles offshore from Port Florida Bay. An underwater explosion of 18 tons of explosives was detonated 100 meters from the carrier to ensure that it can withstand the harsh environment of war. According to the United States Geological Survey, the explosion was equivalent to an earthquake of magnitude 3.9 on the Richter scale, and the Ford only suffered minor vibrations. Passed the test perfectly. Initially, the advanced weapon elevator platform of this ship was considered a failure and received much criticism. But after more than 5 years of contact with the ship, it was found that these two features did not encounter any problem and had never occurred. The ship has achieved combat capability. Initial Match G explosion of the river in the area. The Guerrero of 4 has begun to deploy to the east, to the Mediterranean. Compared to previous generation Mimas-class aircraft carriers, the Ford uses a lot of high automation systems, helps reduce the number of personnel on board. The Niemet has a full complement of 6,012 people, while the Ford only needs 4,539 people, including the aircrew and ground personnel. The fewer the number of personnel on the aircraft carrier, the longer the continuous combat time of the ship. At the same time, the use of many devices, high automation will also significantly improve the ship's situational awareness. In addition to RA, the Ford is equipped with stealthy F-35C aircraft. With extended combat gunfire, the attack distance is also longer than conventional aircraft carriers. When confrontation occurs at sea, the Ford can let the F-35C aircraft take off from a long distance to attack enemy targets. Due to the stealth capability of the F-35C, the enemy's radar is unlikely to detect this aircraft, and therefore cannot determine the position of the carrier based on the direction of the fighter's flight, reducing the possibility of the carrier being detected and avoiding enemy attack. Furthermore, the electromagnetic launch system EMALS on the vice carrier is easier to maintain and service than the traditional steam launch system. When operating, the launch force of this system can be adjusted. For example, when launching a large early warning aircraft, such as the E-20 School, the launch force can be increased for the FA-18, F-35C, and future unmanned aircraft. The launch force can be adjusted to suit the different weights and sizes of similar aircraft. In contrast, the steam launch system cannot adjust. The force can cause damage to light fighters, causing they cannot perform the missions following after takeoff. The use of electronic catapults not only allows for the adjustment of the launch force, but also allows the launch of more aircraft in a short period of time to maximize the combat capabilities of aircraft carriers, surpassing the traditional steam catapult. In the U.S. military's plans, the Ford will become the first aircraft carrier to have superior performance compared to the previous Nimitz class. The PHO is not only equipped with electronically scanned array radar, ANSBI-BA and ANSBI-4, multifunction and multiband radar systems, and ship defense systems, but also for the first time uses an electronic aircraft catapult, replacing the traditional steam catapult to launch all non-vertical takeoff and landing fighters. This new change has eliminated the traditional requirement for the production and storage of steam, thereby freeing up a large space between the ship's hull. Thanks to the electronic launch system, the number of aircraft launches per day on the ship supports 25% more than the Navy class, and over its 55-year life will save $4 billion operating costs. As of January 17, 2014, after completing an 8-month deployment, the Ford has returned to Norfolk, Virginia. The ship has sailed for 239 days out of Norfolk, conducted 43 replenishments at sea, and has traveled over 150,000 kilometers. Finally, according to the current plan of the U.S. Navy, the USS John F. Kennedy will officially be commissioned next year, and the U.S. naval power will be raised to a new level. The third Ford-class aircraft carrier is under construction, will inherit the legendary name Enterprise, and is expected to be commissioned in 2028. People think if the Enterprise is commissioned right, it will be deployed how far? The story of USS Kennedy and USS Ford shows us one thing is only temporary, but true strength will be tested by time and battlefield. The name Kennedy is a symbol, but it is the technology from EMALS F-35C to nuclear reaction that turns the ship into an invincible steel city in the sky. Life is not only weapons, but courage is the ultimate weapon, writing immortal pages of history. If you find this video valuable, please like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I am Hai. See you in the next video.